Testing 1 2. Happy 420, bro. Can't believe I ever was one of these douchebags. Or, sorry, degenerates. You guys ever wonder who's who's behind everything? Who's behind the all the illegal drugs and all the organized crime, racketeering, and drug smuggling, the loose borders, the fact that a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, but there's at least a few huge banks that launder drug money for the cartels. And nothing ever seems to really happen to them. I wonder, you guys ever wonder who's behind all that? I know who's behind it. Some of you guys probably have an idea of what I'm talking about, or at least one part. Most of you guys have no clue whatsoever. I used to think I knew, but that was only part of it. I had to listen to something the other day. I really dislike having to listen to pretty much anything that's not Torah related, because usually it's just absolute filth and disgusting garbage. Whether it's tainted with immodesty of some shade of pornography, whether it's outright auditory or visual porn, or it's just the idea behind the filth that seeps into people's brains, or it's just monetarily driven, like so much of life is driven by people's desires. It was not like the absolute degenerate filth of porn and Hollywood, and this infected everything, including children's programming like Disney. If it's not that, then it's just that everything has become monetized to such a degree it's just tainted and disgusting. Everything sounds like a used car salesman trying to scam people into buying some junker that they dumped sawdust into, so it sounded like it runs smooth, and so they could push it off the lot just far enough to get the sale cleared, and then who cares what happens once you're down the road. But I was begging God when I was having to listen to this thing, please don't let this be absolute filth. And God is so merciful. As mostly it was pretty okay. Well, it was this TED talk, and yeah, I know. Definitely was not my choice at all. But sometimes, a lot of times, we got to do stuff that we don't want to do. So I sucked it up, and I was listening to this guy that was a recovered alcoholic. His name is like Hobo something, I can't remember, but he's telling his life story basically. Like, I guess he goes around to like AA meetings all around the country and tells his story to get people to wake the hell up and stop destroying their life with alcohol or drugs or whatever. And he started telling the like the early part of his story. He was born to a drunk, a raging alcoholic. He was super violent. And he said, like he didn't know how his dad did it. Like he had, it was his parents and like something like 5 or 6 kids. And his dad, he said his dad would come home raging drunk. He'd beat his mom, and then go to sleep at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then every single day, he would be up at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then go to work. And he couldn't comprehend how in the hell does the guy? I mean, he could barely stand, can't talk, get home and go to sleep, and within less than like 3 hours most nights, 3 or 4 hours, get up and then go to work and function. And he did that every single day, except for I think Sundays. He had Sundays off, so he got to sleep in one day a week. But this guy, hobo whatever, he's telling his story, and he said by the time he was like 12, he started drinking. And started drinking, and he was he was he wanted like he was running with gangs, and he was like, why? He said all his brothers and sisters were like fairly normal. He was the only one that was like his dad, like a raging drunk. I mean, it wasn't that bad when he was 12, but he got by the time I think he was like 16, he became a total gangster. Ran with a bunch of other degenerate hoodlums. Would rob places to get money to buy booze. And he was thinking to himself when he started getting in trouble with the cops that why am I like this? That all my brothers and sisters, they're like normal. They're not all screwed up like me. What the hell happened to me? And he says something that just popped out in my head. And there's links in the description of what I'm talking about for a series of lectures. This one specifically is the second one at the bottom. And he says something must have happened that night when they were having me, that some weird stuff like went in when they were conceiving me, because I was the only one that turned out all screwed up. And I thought, wow, that's exactly what Rabbi Rubin's talking about the whole time in this series. That when a couple is conceiving children, their mindset, the thoughts in their head, and their intent when they're before and during the act has a massive impact on the outcome of the soul that's brought into that, into the child. And Scientists say that addiction runs in, it's genetic. It runs in the family, and that's just the physical component. The the spiritual component is like way more drastic, because a person is born with certain tendencies and certain limitations based based on those actions of their parents, and some other stuff we won't get into right now. But it's what am I trying to say? It's just a set of circumstances. Nothing is set in stone in that regard. We all have the ability to overcome all the horrible circumstances we were born into, whatever, or in the other way. Even if we were born into good circumstances, we have the ability to totally rip them to shreds and turn it to a complete disaster by our own will and our own actions. So everyone likes to, look around and blame the fact that there's no border wall, and that this group or that group controls this or that, and they're they run Hollywood, and they run the banks, and they run organized crime, and it doesn't matter. One is because people are just puppets. It's just a sad excuse for people that don't know God to like run around and point the finger and blame everyone for their problems. And as long as we do that, we'll never fix anything at all. Things will continue to get worse and worse until they fall apart and they explode in our face. And so I was listening to this guy, who will whatever, tell his story about how screwed up he was. When he was 16, he had to do 6 years in the penitentiary because he got arrested. And he had lived somewhere in like Philadelphia or somewhere back east, and him and his gang would go around and rob like liquor stores and pharmacies and whatever they could get their hands on. And he didn't realize he was committing, armed robbery and severe felonies in like at least 3 different states. So he had to do 6 years in the pen at one state, and then as soon as he got out, there was state troopers from, I think it was whatever, either New York or somewhere else, and they were right there to pick him up and said, "You got to do. We got you for 6 more years for a whole list of crimes that you've done over here." And somehow he got off. The judge had mercy on him and told him he didn't have to. Basically said it, as long as you swear you never step foot in the state, then rip up this thing and call it time served. He said, "I swear, Your Honor, I'll never set foot in your state again. I won't even fly over your state." So he thought he was set, and then he joined the Army, or no, he joined the Marines. He said he was a good Marine. That lasted like a year before he was out, and he said the whole time he was in the pen, he was never sober. He made I forget what he called it, but I heard it referred to as pruno. Basically taking whatever garbage that the kitchen chefs had and like turning it into liquor. So he was still an alcoholic when he got out of prison, and he went into the Marines to try to like straighten up a little bit because he didn't have any idea what in the hell he was doing in life. And he thought things were going pretty well, but he said he made $72 a month, and he's like, that ain't enough to drink on. And he was one of these fancy guys who like to have a wad of money and throw it around like a fool and buy drinks and wear fancy clothes. And so within like a few months of being in the Marines, his first shortly, he goes back and hooks up with his old gang, and they start doing armed robberies again. And he gets picked up again within like I don't know, a few months, and he gets booted out of the Marines. He gets a discharge. That's probably not honorable, as if there is much of a thing. But he had to go to prison again, and then he got out. And he eventually had become so screwed up. All his family basically told him to just do whatever you want, just don't hang around here, leave, get out of here. And so he became a hobo and rode the rails. And like there was various points in this story over his life where he's talking about how he became so ill that he had to get hospitalized, and his liver shutting down, his entire body shutting down. And the first time was when he was like, I don't even think he was like 30 or 35, something like that. Yeah, he lost the lung, and it was dying. The doctor was like, "You're dying. We gotta take your lung out. Your whole body's shutting down." And they took his lung out, and then he took off. Like as soon as he could get up and walk around, he left and kept hit the rails again, kept drinking. And somehow he had the strength to keep doing that for like another 20 years before finally he was down to like 95 pounds. And this time for real, the doctor straight up told him, "You're gonna die. You're gonna die. Your entire body is shutting down for real. You already lost one lung. Like you got liver failure. Your heart's starting to fail. Your every organ, like your entire body is just malfunctioning. You're going to die." And like he'd been through all kinds of hell, and it never sunk in until that moment. Like he always like, "Oh, whatever, I'll be fine. Just get out of the hospital, or get out of the jail, or get out of the halfway house, and just everything's fine." As soon as he got something to dilute his thoughts and make all the reality dissolve away, then everything is cool. Woo! Go on skating by through life until finally he's there on a hospital bed. Got tubes in every hole coming out of his body. Can't eat liquid, or can't eat solid food. Can't even eat liquid food. On IV. Couldn't do anything. You're barely even a human being. 95 pounds. And the doctors told him he's dying, and he finally, like, something inside finally woke up, and he said, "Oh God, I think they're serious." And somehow that was the point, you know, after all the other like horror and suffering they had gone through, they finally woke up and realized that this life is severely temporary. And eventually, he said he kept thinking about Potter's Field because all the homeless drunks and addicts get buried in Potter's Field in a mass grave. They just dump, like, they dig a hole 6 feet deep and they stack, you know, 4, 5, 6 bodies, whatever, however many people died that day. They stuff them all in the same hole and then fill it in with dirt. And he said, I don't want to die in Potter's Field. No, I don't want to die in Potter's Field. I want to get buried in Potter's Field. So he woke up and he did teshuva. He begged God for help. He said, you know, God, if you're real, I got no strength to do anything. But if you have mercy on me and give me life, I promise I will turn my life around and I'll do everything I can to fix everything I screwed up and try to help other people. Please just give me a chance. Just, and he said he heard this voice inside. He said, you know, dude, you're causing me problems right now, and you just got to get out of the way so we can fix you and you can get better. And so he shut up. And he said this voice said, I'm going to take away that urge that you have that drives you insane if you just do the work. But you got to do the work because there's no free ride. God doesn't give help to people that don't help themselves. And during this whole journey that is this dude's life, some night nurse at one of the halfway houses he was staying at just was absolutely insane, and she married this dude after like 3 months of him sweet talking her, of being a homeless drunk and an ex-con who just got out of prison, and they had a kid. And like after during this time when he's in the hospital dying, his son contacts him that he hadn't seen in like, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. And he says, Dad, I gotta see you. And he's like, his son was an alcoholic too, but he was working a program and got sober, and you know, everyone has that urge. Every single human being. Some people just get it for a little worse than others, depending on their circumstances, and it certainly runs in the family. Some people might think it skips a generation, but it doesn't. It just kind of morphs into something that's not easily identifiable by most people as being an addiction to a substance. Instead, it manifests as, you know, some kind of like deranged behavior or compulsion or obsession, whether it's like, you know, kleptomania or what else? Work, or just, you know, sex addiction. It always manifests itself, unless a person takes the action to educate themselves and to do everything they can when they are about to conceive a child, to ensure that God gives that person, that couple, the best possible soul that they have the merit for. Because God doesn't give the best souls to wicked people who have no appreciation, who aren't going to raise them in a good household. At least, not usually. So people who act like animals and think like animals and are driven solely by their lusts, they get screwed up kids. Kids that are largely tortured and have a huge obstacle to overcome. But we cannot blame anyone for our problems, because God doesn't give anyone a set of conditions, one, that we can't overcome, and two, nothing that we don't deserve. Because, like I mentioned before, for almost everyone in the world, this is not our first rodeo. We've been here before, and we screwed up bad last time. That's why we got to deal with all the, this stuff that's hard for us this time around. If we don't overcome all the stuff that's hard for us, we either lose our last chance and we go straight to the dumpster, the dumpster of heaven that is Gehinnom, hell. And we get torched until we can finally get recycled after God cleanses us of all our filth that we've contaminated our soul with. Or we can do the hard work with God's help and clean ourselves up here, at least to a large degree, and have a good life, a blessed life. And maybe even with God's help, we can enter Gan Eden. We can go to heaven. May it be His will. But even if you don't think that you have an addiction, everyone does. It's called a Yetzer Hara, an evil inclination. And if we try and we want to live, we can listen to that voice. That voice that he had, that voice is the opposite of the evil inclination, the opposite of the Yetzer Hara. It's the Yetzer Hatov, our good inclination. That is our soul. That's the part of us that is holy from God in a pure way. But it's just we lived in the world so long, and we've been so polluted by our own desires and corrupted by the world, and we haven't learned how to fight back. Mostly because we didn't want to. We enjoy the filth just so much. We're just too awesome to overcome. But eventually, a lot of people get beaten down so much they end up like that hobo dude laying on the bed and finally wake up and beg God for help. Robert Rubin says that only fools learn from their own mistakes, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are fools in the world, and there's even more that aren't even that. But highly recommend looking at the videos in the description and watching them, and beg God for help, because you don't want the alternative. of blaming anyone, no matter how much share in the blame they may have, will never help anyone do anything good. I was talking with someone yesterday about this. It's in the accounting in heaven, according to God, there is blame for everyone to go around, for everyone that's involved in any action. But us thinking about that doesn't do us any good in this world. Because if we don't take our own responsibility and fix our portion, fix our share, then we're going to end up right where everyone else is once we die, suffering for all our actions, and seeing the truth when we're up there after all this is over, of like how much we could have had, how relatively easy it all would have been for us to just do something rather than just complaining and whining and blaming other people. And no matter if they have any blame or they don't, it doesn't matter. All that matters is waking up before we're on the hospital bed and we've lost a lung and our body's dying and we're 95 pounds. We're one fraction of an inch from going to hell forever. That's all that matters, is that we do teshuva, Teshuva. With God's help, it is possible.